I started a new job,
All right,
started a new business.
we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. All right, so today is Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. This is Town Council Meeting 16-25. We are in the Town Council Chambers at 30 Main Street, Freeport, Maine. It is 6:09. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like I'm back in grade school.
All right, and next we will do our roll call. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Pillsbury.
Present.
Councillor Lawrence.
I'm here.
Councillor Brown.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Present.
Councillor Benoit is here and present, and Councillor Pilch is excused for the evening. All right, our third order of business is to waive reading and accept as printed the July 15th, 2025 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Make the motion? Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Chip made the motion, John seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay, next up, we have our announcements. So I have a few. So we are accepting applications for a vacancy on the Shellfish Conservation Commission and on the Freeport Sustainability Committee. Please contact the clerk's office for more information. The Public Works Department has replaced 3 dead trees at the intersection of Depot Street and Grove Street with pin oak trees, matching the species currently planted in front of Town Hall. Additionally, 3 more pin oaks have been planted at various locations along Depot Street to enhance the streetscape and promote long-term canopy growth. The Freeport Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, August 6, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Freeport Town Hall Council Chambers at 30 Main Street, Freeport, Maine, to discuss the draft 2025 Freeport Comprehensive Plan. Copies of the plan are available to view at www.futurefreeport.com, the town office, and the Freeport Community Library. Nomination papers are available for elected positions to be voted on November 4th, 2025. Openings include a councilor at large, Councilor District 1, RSU 5 Board of Directors, Sewer District, and Water District. Visit the town clerk's office for further information. Any other announcements from the council? Go ahead.
The Freeport Community Players are at it again in the next weekend, this coming weekend and the next weekend, Friday, Saturday. Doors open at 7. Play starts at 8. It's called Drinking Habits. Pretty funny show. Good one for Freeport. So go out and see it. It's at the Freeport Performing Arts.
Great, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. We will move on to our information exchange. So we'll start first with counselors for any information to exchange on conversations with constituents or other groups. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to highlight and introduce some folks who pulled off an amazing feat. 2 years ago, Allie McCormick and Tom Whalen came here to tell us about a plan they had to resurface the basketball courts at the end of Kendall Lane in front of the middle school. And that's an RSU property, and we're like, that's great, but we don't have any control over that. Good luck, whatever. And we couldn't do anything except cheer you on. And I was out there at the 4th of July lining up for the parade and saw how wonderful they look. So I want to highlight an amazing accomplishment by volunteers, following up on 20 plus years earlier or more, 30 years earlier, when they were first created by volunteer effort, the basketball courts. And if you don't play basketball, it's a fun place to just go and look how beautiful they are. If you do play basketball, this is where you want to be because it's free outdoor courts and they're hardly ever overrun. So I just want to recognize Alan McCormick and Tom Whalen. If you wouldn't mind just coming up and give us just a teeny history of what you guys accomplished. $0 from the town, zero labor from taxpayer-supported staff, and a fabulous accomplishment.
Thank John. Yeah, so the Build It Back for Bob campaign started about 2 years ago after the death of our dear friend and leader of the original project 30 years ago, Bob Smith, passed away. Allie and I, literally at the Celebration of Life, started talking about this along with other people there. I want to mention that Bob's family is here today. Kelsey, his daughter, who was there for the early fundraising efforts. And Lori, Bob's wife, along with grandchildren, son-in-law, so we're really pleased that they were able to come to see this. So that was 30 some odd years ago. Fast forward to 2 years ago, when we decided to undertake this Build It Back for Bob campaign. A lot of the original folks, Jerry Kennedy, Stephanie joined us, and others to set out and raise the funds to do this. And we set out to raise $100,000. We figured that would be more than enough to repave a couple of basketball courts. We ended up surpassing that goal, raised over $154,000, and thought we'd be sitting pretty, we'd be putting in new hoops and so forth. And then the bidding process came, and we raised enough, but just barely. And it was a good, we kept the RSU informed the whole way along, Gene, Glenn, and the folks there. And they, after some confidence building, kind of turned it over to us. We have the engineering done, and then had a group, Coastal Inc., that did the work for us, and they've been an incredible partner to work with. So what you see now, it does look great, thank you, but our goal for the first day of school was to have it really cleaned up and a wow factor as families drive in and kids return for the school year to see that, wow, it's going to be a great year, look at all that's been going on here as they drive in the driveway. But it's not done. So we're going to have the fence down. If you go there now, what you'll see, the fence is going to come down, and the court has been paved, reconstructed, and there's temporary lines on the courts right now. Maine Tennis is going to do the final paint job next spring. That's their scheduling. And so it'll be fully functional and playable from now until then, but next spring we're going to put the 3 layers of that rubberized paint, the sealed paint that you see like on a tennis court, something like that. And we're going to do it in the Falcon colors, and it's going to be back to its original glory from 30 years ago. So we're just so happy to do it in honor of our dear friend Bob, and his family has been so supportive and wonderful the entire way. And I'll just say the fundraising was easy because of Bob. When we would go to someone and say, we're trying to do this, Bob Smith was Bob Smith from Tabasco? Yeah. Oh, well, what do you need? What does he need? And the funds just started rolling in, and that's how 100,000 became 154,000. And it's just been incredibly rewarding and satisfying, and we appreciate the opportunity to update you all tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Very good.
The neighbors have been very cooperative.
Allie came to me when they were getting ready to build this and said, Mary, you have lived beside these basketball courts for 30 years. What do you think? And I said, you know what? Bring it on. It's where the kids are at night. They're always there. They're very respectful. I think once in 30 years we have to go over at, 1 o'clock in the morning and say, okay, boys, And we haven't had.
We apologize.
I know. No, it's wonderful. It's been absolutely great to have it there. So congratulations, really nice.
Well, I can't wait to go check it out. Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Councillor Egan, for making sure we did that. Thank you.
You're leaving already?
Also, I just want to make sure councilors are aware, I think Chris did a good job getting attendance today, but we do have our official Bustins field trip for August 19th. I will try to take the 3 p.m. ferry, but I know there's also a later one as well for folks, 5. Yep, so looking forward to it. Any other? Councilor Brown.
Just wanted to make an observation that we came out of a meeting almost a minute or two late to the sound of quite a bit of talking in this chamber, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, the sound of democracy at work. It's just wonderful. Go team, Freeport.
Councilor Smith?
The chair and I had our monthly coffee with council leadership yesterday morning. We had 3 folks attend, and a number of issues that were discussed, but the ones that I will mention are that we did have a visit from our friend Daniel Freund, who was remarking on his concerns around cost of health insurance, and I am going to follow up with the chair of the Finance Committee after this meeting to see how we can continue to move those concerns along. And also, we were joined by one of the leaders of the Freeport Wood Bank, who shared their plans for ramping up volunteer efforts and opportunities as we get into the fall, and what they might be looking for in terms of both donations, support from the town, but also support from the community. So we'll keep you posted as we hear more.
Anything else from council? All right, then we will move on to our committee updates. We will start with the Freeport Economic Development Corporation for their monthly update. Mary and Tawny, take it away. Okay.
Wow. Okay, first off, I want to thank you all because they actually brought a cord that works this time, so now my presentations will always be on decks. So, do you want to go up there? See here. Thank you. We're going to do a brief one tonight because last time we spent quite a bit of time talking through things. Last time we talked about the four cornerstones of the economic sustainability, and as we had said before, we are feeling great about the vacancies. We are at one of our lowest vacancy rates. You probably saw an article in the newspaper where our lowest vacancy rates in more than 20 years, which is wonderful. And it certainly doesn't mean we can take our feet off the pedal because now it's about really creating that sustainability. So we know that there's some things to do, and we're going to focus on those tonight around understanding the levers of what's next, and also talking about implementing some of the plans that help us get there. So Tawny, I'm going to let you talk about.
Sure. So as Mary said, and we've been able to, to brag about, because I have to say, for some reason, like after the pandemic, Freeport became the poster child for vacancies. I was like, what the heck? There's vacancies all over the place. But we were the poster child. And why? Because we weren't historically. I mean, Mike Marino's here tonight. Like, we were the town sought after, the place you wanted to be neighbors with LL Bean. And we were the national hub, and it was fantastic. But we don't stop when there's a challenge. So yes, although our vacancy rate is lower than it's been since 2013, it doesn't mean that we take our foot off the pedal. We need to what I learned when I went to the ICS conference last week is that what part of the draw that we can brag about the fact that we have 3 million visitors a year is because primarily for our one big anchor tenant being LL Bean. But it is still the psychology of those visitors that are coming here is that they want that national experience, And so whether they're going to Kittery or the mall or Freeport, they are still, that is a driving force behind the feet. So I realize that, the importance of that is something we haven't really been able to touch ourselves. We've done a good job, I believe, with getting, the local boutique shops in, and they're fabulous and great, and are going to help with that experience when people come to Freeport. We've done a pretty good job getting some regionals. Liberty Graphics is an example of that. But we do realize with what we have left for vacancies, these are the more traditional, larger spaces. And, anchor tenants create also co-tenants that are of that same caliber. So once again, I went to a conference outside of the state of Maine, very proud to be from the town of Freeport with an incredible anchor like LL Bean, but I'm here to say I learned we do need more. So I would like to start focusing our attention on trying to capture a few more of our national tenants. And we're on the radar. When I went down 3 years ago, Freeport was not quite on the radar, particularly with nationals. And 3 years going forward, and we are, but they needed a little convincing. If you just look at our downtown, year-round population, we don't really meet the marks. But if you can explain to them, our unique situation, this heavy volume that we get, this, these 5 or so months where we get a high volume of people, they said, I want to talk to you more. So I think we're in a fantastic position to take that next step. After that meeting, I had the privilege of going to a CCIM sorority where we collaborated with many different types of commercial real estate agents from around the country and primarily in the New England area. And it was just another example and a reminder to get to help to understand what other professionals in other parts are doing in the market. And again, I was proud to be from Freeport. But that doesn't stop there, guys, because tomorrow morning I'll be at Main Biz, and I'll be learning about how to support small businesses as they start to grow. So it's been a real privilege to continue to do this work because I have just seen great results. So thank you.
One of the things that we thought was fun about the photos here is if you look at the photo that's sort of the larger one in the center, WS is the one that has where the Shaw's Plaza is. And if you'll notice, what's the picture that they have in the top right, in the middle? That's our Mass Landing Brewery. So it's awesome that that's the way that we get more, notice is when these folks go to conferences and they show a cool opportunity in Freeport. That speaks sort of louder than anything we can do. So we were super excited to see them there. So our relationships with WS and the folks from Freeport Village Station and Bean and all, it's really important because it's like, those folks beget other folks that are in the same category that they are. So it's super important that we kind of snub around with them. Okay, so we want to show this?
Oh, yeah.
We have to.
This is testing our technology skills.
Let's see if this works for us. It's also really important that we bring in folks. Can you hear it?
This is from today.
So we have a young woman who, guess what? She's the one that knows how to do this. And she's creating videos and things like this to put out so that we're also trying to reach out into social media to say, and this was today.
Right.
It was busy. It was cool. There were people around. You're going to see some of the new shops that have opened up. So this is also another important way that we continue to reach back out and make sure that we're going after, we got to get people here. And that's the way we're doing it. Okay? So.
No stone unturned.
Okay. Let me see, how do I make this bigger again? I don't know how to make it bigger again. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, again, we keep looking at the successes that we have. These are successes that are opening in July. Who's been to the coffee maker at Maid already? I know. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. We're so happy that she has that opened up. In the Mallet Building, What the Actual Fudge and Sips and Subs is going to be opening August 14th. We are so excited about that. It's the first time that there's been folks in Mallet Building in how long? Quite a few years, right. Right. And we know that that kind of corridor is going to be a great corridor for us to have full, so super excited. Realm of Legends is where the chamber area is, and oh, by the way, the Gap Building purchase has complete. Where's Jared? Is he here? No. Congratulations to Jared and Jen Levin, who have purchased that building. They are also the ones that own Mainly Tubs and own Chilton's Furniture, and they're just super excited to own that building and be a part of Freeport. It's just fabulous to know that there's local folks, along with you all who have been here forever, but local folks who are very excited about being here. And we still have another large footage that we're looking at. These things take time, but we're not giving up. So that's all about how do we keep the fillings and businesses coming here. But there's also what we talked about before. It's helping our partners be successful once they're in Freeport. And that's one of those joint activities that we all do together. And we're just sort of congratulating the three things that the council has been involved in. It matters when we're doing these things. Example with King's Head about welcoming and helping, helping them. They're doing the licensing process and helping them move through that in a way that gets their doors open. That's super that you're involved in that. It speaks so well to Freeport. The next is just the leverage of helping housing on Depot Street. Think about how do we do that in a way that works for everyone, and the council's involved with that. Super important. It speaks so loud. That particular developer said to Tanya, I've never been treated like this in another town. Wow, isn't that great? Yay, we should celebrate. And in the amplifying what's working, example is parking. You guys brought everybody together really quickly to talk about how people felt about parking. That was a very good thing for the council to do. And as we continue to work on that, finding that solution. So these are all the things that really help us to continue to make sure that the economics in downtown are strong. I don't know who that is.
We see Tom coming in to save the day. I hope.
It's great that we're making progress on the vacancy rates. Do we track when existing leases roll off, and how can we get proactive in terms of ensuring the next round of vacancies doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think there's, interesting that you say that, because at our board meeting this morning, we were also talking about, it's time for us to also take the next step into things like, there's a company that we can purchase data from that talks to us about who is coming to Freeport, where they go, how often they're there. Placer is one, but there's another one, and that talks about all the data. So the way that we know, like, who to put in next into a building also has to do with us continually reminding them, here's the people who are coming here, here's where they're going. I mean, Jared Levin has a really good story about they had 3 stores. They closed a store in another town and kept this one open because of the, basically, the type of person who shops in Freeport. Even though they don't buy the furniture, they have the means to be able to buy it. So, so you asked about, though, about how do we track the leases. That would be the relationships that Tawny has with the business owners, with the property owners, with the development groups, and all of that information. We also have this ginormous spreadsheet that is the scariest thing you've ever seen, that tracks the location, the information from the town about square footage and how long they've been in there and who's been in there and when they're going. So that's something that we look at quarterly to say, where are they? So that's not an easy answer, I know, but it's complicated because we're working with so many different, this is not one owner or one manager. Like, if you have a mall, you have one person that you're talking to, which is the mall leadership. We have, I don't know, how many different owners do we have? A lot. So that is absolutely driven by relationships and walking around and talking to people and knocking on their doors, and that's the role we're very thankful that Tawny plays for us, because literally, if you're with her when she walks into buildings, it's kind of humbling. You're kind of like, who are you? And they're, oh, Tawny, how are you? So it's true. It's true. It's those relationships that keep us on top of that.
And the owners don't want it to be unoccupied either.
Well, I guess my question was more around, like, I don't understand the space very well, but, you know, when you find out someone's going to leave, is it too late to intervene? I mean, that's the question. Like, how do we, what's the right timing for checking in and making sure that someone's not going to depart?
And some of those we do know, and you can start doing that forecasting early, and that's obviously the best case scenario. But also then there are some others that, you know, it can be last minute, and those we seem to, because our relationships with these property owners, it can be done relatively quickly. I mean, one of the storefronts, it was actually Freeport Footworks, was done in 15 minutes over a text exchange with the property owner and myself. It was that quick. So, you know, some of them, that was an exceptional one. The Mallet building took a little longer, right, Ken? But, you know, right, a few. But, you know, but it is that relationship. So, yes, sometimes we have a formal time, but, you know, not always. And sometimes I think we don't get that huge window because there is hope that things are going to change, and that if they're struggling, that they might, it might get better for them.
I think the other thing that helps us there is being involved, like we said, in supporting businesses once they get here. So it's saying what's working, what's not working, what do you need? Right. You know, what is not working for you? How can we help you do those things? And it's simple little things that help people stay here. It's being able to put tables on the sidewalk. Right. I know those seem like little things, but those are big things to that owner. The gentleman who opened the tea shop, you know, he put some tables outside. And those things, those little hand holdings that we do are what keep people here and what turn them around staying here. So again, I think it's high involvement because they're all different. You know, a corporate business leaving has less to do about Freeport and more about just the economics of world economics and what their corporation is doing. Those are harder to turn around, but, you know, staying on top of it is.
Yeah, and lastly, I'll just add that that's part of our hope into having some more contacts with nationals is they have a formula that works. You know, Starbucks knows that they do well next to a Chick-fil-A. You know, so they have these formulas. So that's why we're kind of hoping that we can get some of that, because they have that kind of proven track record. L.L. Bean's another one of them. When we were in New York in December, you know, they were saying, I was like, how do you know L.L. Bean? Well, we're tenants with them in this state, and, you know, we do very well being neighbors with them. So we're hoping to get a little bit of that, more of that national formula up here.
And lastly, I think some of our challenge going forward is who do we want here? You know, when your vacancies are high, you want everyone. And at some point, we need to say, who do we want to be in Freeport? And how do we want to keep that like good feeling going? And so being choiceful about who we want. And we're not quite there yet, but we need to start thinking about that. Because I think there's some looks and feels that we want here, and there's some that we would probably rather not have. So it's important for us to think about that as turnover occurs. Some turnover is going to be good. You know, you can't say zero turnover. Some turnover will be good, and we just need to be ready with what's next. We're kind of passionate about this, so.
And Jared just arrived, everybody, so you can give your congratulations to him.
Yay, Jared. We did, yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I think,
Okay, we did have Suzanne Watson, but I don't know if we got that message to her for Meeting House Arts, so we'll just put her on the next agenda.
Yeah, I thought that was all set. I'm surprised she's not here. I thought maybe she had canceled that I didn't know about.
Nope, but, you know,
Okay.
we'll assume it was just wires crossed, and we'll get her on for next time. So then, moving on to the town manager's report. That's you, Sophie.
I have an exciting report for everybody. First, I just want to make council aware that we did have a bit of an accident late last week. We had the alternative response vehicle parked on Depot Street, and an Econoline van with an allegedly distracted driver, allegedly perhaps going more than the speed limit, hit the car, drove it about 6, it was parked in a parking spot, drove it about 8 feet forward and 2 feet to the side. The appraiser, our insurance company, looked at it. They are totaling the vehicle. Unfortunately, we are very fortunate nobody was in it. But I have signed over the title to the vehicle. We'll get a check for $12,000. I met with Nate earlier today. Think we have a plan to cobble transportation, but it will result potentially in a little modification to our long-term capital plan, which we'll talk with you about in the winter. And we'll put the $12,000 back into Nate's reserve account to help offset the cost of said capital investment. So, just want to let you know about it. Caroline and I got to hear the accident. We didn't know what we were listening to. It was really loud. I will just say that. I have, I think, good news and bad news, or at least telling you what I think I need to do. We've talked about the efforts underway between the town and emergency management consultants who are our EV charger. They were helping us spec out and led the charge to help get funding for our EV chargers. What we got funding for actually two separate projects, one at Town Hall and one at the library. They both had the same terms. It's 80% grant funding up to a total of $40,000. These were for level 2 chargers. So for Town Hall, it is working great. They are scheduled to be installed. It is a project that results in a $37,000 grant and about a $9,000 expense for the town. We had $25,000 budgeted, so that's great. On the other side, because of a change in the CMP quote that we got, because we have to upgrade a transformer in order to support the level 2 charger at the library, we would tap out efficiency main funding at $40,000, but it would be $34,900 for the town. We looked for alternative kind of pots of money that would make sense, really didn't see anything, and really wonder if this is the next step. So Winter is working through a process of applying to be a sustainable library, which may open us up for additional grant funding and also provide us a very clear roadmap for that process where electric chargers, vehicle chargers may or may not fit in as a top priority. So my suggestion, council has approved accepting the funds. We would actually suggest that we turn back the efficiency main funds for the library at this point and move forward with town hall.
Just to clarify, because I know this has been a question in the past, the chargers that are proposed for either place are not free. They would be paid correctly. So,
Yep,
so
and
it's
so
not that
we-
the town is giving away the energy. We're
Nope.
collecting fees for that.
And we looked into, because that was one of my questions, like, how long would it take to pay back? And what we're hearing from other municipalities, in order to make this work with planning and the goals associated with it, the price point is really at collecting enough money to pay to offset the cost of the energy plus future maintenance costs. And so when we heard about what people were bringing in, we couldn't even see a payback in like 5 years or 7 years. It was a long time.
You had mentioned also, if we turn back the EcoMaid money now, other opportunities for funding in the future, potentially?
So the efficiency main,
Yeah.
we don't want to do this with EcoMain.
That's what I meant.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Very different.
Yep. I think there are opportunities in the future there. And Caroline is looking at GoPIF money and other kind of funding opportunities. We just, at this point in time, are very concerned about spending this amount of money.
Any chance to pivot to a different location?
I don't know. Do you have an idea for a different location?
Not the library? No, I don't. I don't know what would go into changing the application or feasibility study.
So I'm not sure if Earl has asked that question. I can look at that to see if we can bring in a budget, if that's possible. I know that the library has a different pool of funding than town hall. Libraries get a special deal, more so than town hall. We can look at that quickly because we need to either give them back or do the project. I think we might be on overtime.
Oh,
Yeah.
already, okay.
Yep.
I would strongly recommend we explore that for at least a couple of days to see if we can find another location before we hand back grant money that some other community is going to use to put in a charger. So even if we put 2 here.
Yep. And would I assume that as long as I can do it within the original budget, if we can change the location, council is going to let me fill out that paperwork and get that underway?
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay, and we'll come back and confirm it after the fact.
Would another location have the same financial challenges?
Don't know. That's why I'm going to leave it to people who know more than me.
Okay.
We'll ask that question.
Fair enough.
All right. We received, after the agenda posted, we received our annual ballot for our Maine Municipal Association Executive Committee. Normally, this would go on and councilors would vote on the ballot. I will say that they have nominated 1 vice president, Anthony Ward, who's the Casco town manager, and you have to vote for 1. They have suggested nominated 3 executive committee members, and you have to vote for 3. And there is no ability to do a write-in. So this ballot has to be cast before your next council meeting. Are you okay with me voting for the people who are nominated and being your designated person? Yes, all right, good. I want to just, because you have fiduciary responsibilities, let you know that we had the town auditor came on Monday. They are done with the field work in 2 days and headed back to finalize our financial statements. We should be in good shape by, it's either your last meeting in September or your first meeting in October to review the financial statements and have you accept and file them, which I think is great. Based on my conversation, I think everything looks pretty darn good. We also received word today that the final MS4 permit, which is your municipal separated storm sewer system permit, which comes through DEP, but it's an EPA permit. It's a delegated authority that directs us to do all sorts of things like sweep the streets every week during the summertime. It's all around our stormwater collection. We finally have a final version of that. We've been waiting for a long time. Part of that is directing us to create and adopt a low-impact development ordinance. So just so you're aware, that is now on Kyle's plate. The planning board will have to work through that. That requirement, we have until August of 2026 to get that implemented, or else we will be out of compliance with this permit. Okay? And last, but most definitely not least, I just want to remind everybody that I'm on vacation starting tomorrow. And no, that's not what I said. I said I'm on vacation as of tomorrow. Caroline is going to be in charge, and if anything major happens, I'm sure I will know, but I'll be back next Wednesday.
Any questions for Sophie? Enjoy your vacation.
Where are you going? Don't tell us.
Yeah. Keep it secret.
Turn your phone.
Yes, try and take some actual time. All right, thank you. So moving on, we'll move on to the public comment period for folks who are here in person. Just a reminder, this is for items that are not on the agenda. Just ask for you to introduce yourself and to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Union Winship, 16 Pro Road. So as long as I've been coming here, these ladies at FEDC work very hard. But what's going to keep people in this town to do anything? I personally believe that we should think about family fun things, like in the movie theater. Could be laser tag, or find a landowner that wants to do frisbee golf or miniature golf. You got to find a way to get these people to stay. I coming in today, I saw a clear path to beans. First summer ever. I've been here 34 years. This town's pretty empty. If you provide something where parents can take their kids, I think it would be a lot more beneficial to the businesses along these stretches. You know, as I said, they're doing a great job bringing these businesses in, but unless you got something as a binder, it's going to fail, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right. Go ahead and close the public comment. All right, moving on to the next portion of our agenda. So moving on to item 98-25. This is to consider action relative to adopting the consent agenda. We have a few resignations, a few appointments, and a few donations to the library. Councillor Egan, could you please read the be it ordered?
Be it ordered that the August 5th, 2025 consent agenda be adopted.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 99-25. This is to set a public hearing for the purchase of a new ambulance for Fire Rescue Department.
Sure, this isn't setting this.
This is the public
This is the public hearing. We said it last time. So this is the public hearing. So I'll go ahead, Chief, if you'd like to say a few words, introduce the item before we open the public hearing.
Sure. This is the ambulance we presented last fall as a budgetary item to replace one of our current ambulances we have now. The asked amount was $410,000. What we're asking for this evening is the approval for $316,000 to purchase the demonstrator ambulance that we elected to purchase that we could have in just about a year's time from now. The balance of those funds will go to the outfitting of the new ambulance. And if there's anything else I could answer for you, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing if anyone would like to speak on this item. Okay, go ahead and close it. Any discussion from council? Questions? All right, Councillor Pillsbury, could you please read the be it ordained?
Sure. Be it ordained that the purchase of a new ambulance for the Fire Rescue Department in the amount of $316,000 from Greenwood Emergency Vehicles LLC be approved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item 100-25. This is a public hearing, not setting one, to revise the zoning ordinance to increase building height. Kyle, I have you up as introducing this.
Hey everyone, Kyle Drexler, Town Planner. Yeah, this zoning text amendment went through its planning board public hearing. Council set its public hearing at the last time, so now we're here to vote on adoption. The planning board had recommended the amendment back to council as it was consistent with the comprehensive plan. Outlined a few bullet points in the memo there, references to our 2011 comp plan, mentioning the idea of taller buildings as a way to minimize some land disturbance while allowing some extra growth and density in the town. The change is specific to the Village Commercial 1 district. Our existing building height is 45 feet. This would allow it to be 55 feet specifically on the portion of the VC1 on Depot Street. The idea came from the Downtown Vision Plan. Really, it was specifically highlighted in there as an opportunity due to the elevation change, kind of going down the hill there onto Depot Street. The taller buildings would have kind of less of a perceived visual impact. If you're on Main Street, where Depot Street's 20 to 30 feet lower, depending on, which side you're on there. Along with the elevation change kind of limiting the visual impact, the idea was that some of the surface level parking lots along Depot Street could take advantage of some infill development and be really good redevelopment opportunities to convert some of those kind of surface parking lots into either mixed use or multifamily buildings to provide some, much needing housing opportunities. So the text amendment itself is pretty simple. It's really just adding on to our existing maximum building height standard for the VC1 to clarify that 55 feet would be the allowable height along Depot Street, so long as those lots didn't also have a lot line on Main Street. So for instance, any lot like this one that we're on right now that extends from Depot to Main wouldn't be able to take advantage of the height to avoid a scenario where you're getting a lot fronting right on Main Street that would be 55 feet as well. It's really to focus the potential development specifically abutting Depot Street. So happy to answer any questions. That's pretty much it.
All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and open the public hearing if anyone would like to speak on this item. Thank you, Kyle.
Hi, Chalmers Hardenberg, excuse me, 11 Somerset. I applaud this change. I'm a little concerned, or I think people should be aware that with the new statute passed by the legislature in the spring, as they understand it, and maybe Kyle or somebody else can speak to this, if it is a affordable housing development, workforce housing, whatever you want to call it, we would get, or the town would get, the developer would get an additional number of feet or additional stories. So I think we're looking at 6 stories if it's affordable housing, which I personally would like to see, but I just think we should be aware of that if I have that correct.
So yeah, I think we talked about this last time, but I forgot to mention it this time. So LD 1829 is legislation that was passed. The change that was mentioned wouldn't need to go into effect until next summer, basically. As of now, I think it's July 26. So the state's going to go through its rulemaking process this fall regarding 1829. So we'll have a little bit more clarity after that, what some of the specific changes are, if there's any kind of additional provisions or clarification to come out of that. But yeah, as of now, LD 1829 says that any municipality, you have your maximum building height, you have to allow an additional story or an additional 14 feet on top of that for affordable housing development, which is a defined land use that we have that came out of LD 2003. We talked about this at the planning board. We brought it up because it's certainly relevant to consider when you're talking about raising the building height. If you're comfortable with one number, the potential to go another 14 feet above that is certainly relevant. Where we kind of landed at the planning board level was the idea that the change doesn't have to go into effect right now. It won't go into effect until next summer probably. And that this is something we can do right now. So if it turns out that as we approach next summer and we're looking at making changes to our zoning to address all of those changes required in LD 1829, and if we want to have a larger conversation then about pulling back on the building height, or should we allow 69 feet building height if it is affordable housing development, we can have that conversation when we adopt all those 1829 changes. And if we need to pull back in some areas, we can. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we should, at this time, start second guessing some of the recommendations that we had kind of in the pipeline.
That makes good sense. Anybody else for the public hearing? Nobody online. All right, go ahead and close the public hearing. Any discussion from council? Councilor Egan.
I'm strongly in favor of this. Change is hard, and 45 to 55 sounds like an enormous jump. The front facade of the former Nordica Theater is 52 or 53 feet tall, so it's not an Empire State Building. And I'll just add that, we highlighted a lot of images in our downtown visioning process 4 years ago to get to this point where we can start talking about making changes, which are hard, in how we structure land use here. And so I think that this is a key element towards attracting the kind of diversity in development, and hopefully leads to a lot more housing opportunities in downtown, which can really dramatically change the economics of a downtown when you have people living here 24 hours a day and not getting in their car at 5 o'clock and driving out. So I think that's probably the number one thing that we can do to keep people in our community, is to actually create housing opportunities where they're working, recreating, and socializing in our downtown. And that's a key element, and I think that raising the building height to 55 feet is a great step towards that. I'm glad to see it finally happening.
Yes, finally. This is certainly not a new discussion. I think we've talked about this for at least a couple of years, and I'm excited to see it finally on the agenda like this. Any other thoughts? Councilor Lawrence? Did I pick you again?
Huh?
Did I already ask you?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
Be it ordained that the proposed amendments to Town of Freeport Ordinance, Chapter 21 zoning ordinance, Section 413, Village Commercial, VC1, regarding an increase to the building height allowed for certain areas along Depot Street be adopted.
Second.
Any final thoughts? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. I know, sometimes I feel like there should be an applause, and we don't. Woo. Glad you're here, Mary.
That's going in the minute.
All right, moving on to item 101-25. This is a public hearing for a new liquor license for Sips and Subs at 11 Mill Street in Freeport, Maine. Chris, do you have anything to add?
I do not have anything to add to this agenda.
Okay, we have it in our materials. We also reviewed this last meeting as well. Yeah, I'm getting there. And I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this one. Okay. Any discussion up here from the council? I'll close the public hearing.
Hooray.
Yay, Mallet Building. All right, Councilor Brown.
Be it ordered that a new liquor license for FBO Inc. doing business as Sips and Subs, 11 Mill Street, Freeport, be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did you want to say something,
I
Councilor?
believe it's FOB, not FBO, but I might have that.
Yes.
FOB, yep.
I'm looking at the copy of the permit. I just want to make sure we get that right so somebody doesn't challenge it later.
I can start a new LLC if not.
It'd probably be easier.
All right. All right. We're cruising. All right. Item 102-25.
Yeah, I think we actually have to take,
Oh, do we have to?
Yeah,
Chris?
now that we got it corrected.
the gist is,
Just a typo. Okay, great. I'm still in favor.
All right, item 102-25. This is to set a public hearing relative to a moratorium around charging the public to park in VC1 and VC2.
I'm recusing myself from this conversation. I think there was some confusion about whether or not I was recusing myself from conversations related to the moratorium. You'll notice in the minutes from the last meeting, I did so as well. I did participate in the conversation at the workshop last week because that was overall parking in the moratorium actually was not on the agenda, but I will be stepping down for the remainder of this conversation.
And a reminder, this is just to, thank you, Councilor Smith. This is just to set the public hearing. We'll not be doing any public comment for this item tonight. Any discussion on the dais? Great. I think we've discussed this several times, and we'll certainly have time to discuss this for September 2nd during our public hearing. Councilor Egan, will you please read the be it ordained?
Be it ordained that a public hearing be set for September 2nd, 2025 in Town Council Chambers starting at 6 p.m., 30 Main Street, Freeport, to discuss a proposed moratorium that prohibits charging the general public to park in the Village Commercial District 1 and Village Commercial District 2 to be effective retroactive to June 24th, 2025.
second.
Great. Any other discussion at this point? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item 103-25. This is to set a public hearing related to proposed amendments to Chapter 67, Senior Property Tax Assistance Ordinance. Sophie, would you like to introduce this?
I would love to. So I think we still have a little bit of discussion with the ordinance committee about the property tax assistance program. But when we met last month, we had a conversation about changing the timing. So one of the things we discovered is we were asking for applications way too early in the process, especially relative to giving the money out. So we had a lot of folks that forgot about it. We had some folks that applied, received notification that they would receive money, but then were upset because they didn't get money immediately. So what the committee is asking us to move forward is a pretty minor amendment that does 4 things. It changes the application deadline from November 1st to April 15th. It changes the council approval date from the first meeting in December. This is a update since we initially posted. Chalmers picked up my typo. But it changes council approvals date from the first meeting in December to the first meeting in May. It eliminates the preference for electronic funds transfer because internally we discovered it was much easier to do a one-time vendor paper check for folks. And it changes the date of that payment will go out from by June 1st. It was within a certain number of days of council's approval. Now we're saying by June 1st or 14 days after the taxes are paid, whichever happens to come later. So if you don't get your taxes paid until July 15th, you would get your check by July 29th. And I think the group is going to continue to work through some of the more substantive issues after that, but we want to get the deadline moved ahead.
Great. As we've discussed in the past, we knew it was going to be an iterative process. I think the first year went very well, and this is just going to improve this program. So, great. Councillor Pillsbury, could you please read the be it ordained?
Sure. Be it ordained that a public hearing be set for September 2nd, 2025 in Town Council Chambers, starting at 6 p.m., 30 Main Street, Freeport, to discuss amendments to Chapter 67, Senior Property Tax Assistance Ordinance, changing the application deadline and decision-making timeline.
Second.
Any other thoughts? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you to staff and to the ordinance committee on that. All right, the next item is item 104-25, to consider action relative to setting a public hearing related to the purchase of cardiac monitors for fire and rescue department. Chief Bernard, I have you up for that as well.
Busy night. We've requested the purchase of 3 cardiac monitors to go on each one of our ambulances. No pun intended, but the cardiac monitor is the heart of our ambulance. It's being permitted to the paramedic level, the advanced and paramedic level. It's a piece of equipment that's required by the state to be able to do the task at hand. With that being said, we basically are purchasing 3. We have monies allocated in the new ambulance purchase for one of the monitors. We have one that's left over from the ambulance that we purchased in November, our new Rescue 3. What I'm asking is to actually purchase all 3 together in an effort to save some money. The problem is if we wait for the new ambulance to come that was approved this evening, we're going to be 2 years out essentially before we'd be able to get that 3rd unit. It's a cost savings to the town of about $4,000. And it also will eliminate us having 2 different models of equipment. We're actually going to a brand new model, the LifePak 35, which has some really incredible features that will be very beneficial to the staff, obviously using those. So that's the ask, essentially, is to be able to purchase all 3 at once.
Makes sense to me. Any questions for Chief?
Will we take ownership of all 3, or will we just have the credit with the vendor and get a new out of the box?
No, great question. We'll take delivery of all 3 units. It's about 3 months to be able to get them as far as from the time the order's placed. I was just informed today that the FDNY is ordering 310 cardiac monitors. So if we can kind of get our order in before that, maybe that will help us a little bit in that regard, to be able to get them in a timely fashion. But yes, that's the intent. Is we'll purchase all 3, put them on the current ambulances, obviously, that we have now. What I was looking for was not to have 2 different models and 2 different sets of soft goods that we have to use, the electrodes, the blood pressure cuffs, the paper that we use to run the 12-lead EKG when we actually do the 12-lead EKG, and we can print that out in the truck. So again, it's just eliminating basically having 2 different pieces of equipment, somebody not realizing they're on a different truck that day, and that's where the old monitor is or whatever. So we're just trying to eliminate any issues at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
So we're buying these from the same company as FDNY?
They are. So, and this is a sole source provider, and they actually have gone through we received our pricing through the cooperative bid process. So all of that has been done. I have the letter that states that they are the only manufacturer, the only supplier of the equipment, obviously to eliminate that bid process that we typically have to go through.
Yeah, interesting. Councilor Egan.
I'm assuming it's the $183,000, which is warranting. Sorry. I'm assuming it's $183,000 volume that's warranting public hearing. Why we can't just take a vote on it and authorize the chief to get going on this now?
That is
if it is in the budget and we've already approved the budget.
It's exactly right that anything over $100,000 needs council
hearing, yeah.
approval and a public hearing.
Great. All right, chief, got to wait a little bit.
Thank you.
Well, we got him a new ambulance, so
Yes.
one step at a time. All right, thank you, Chief.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Lawrence.
Sure. Be it ordered that a public hearing be set for September 2nd, 2025 in Town Council Chambers, starting at 6 p.m., 30 Main Street, Freeport, to discuss the purchase of 3 cardiac monitors for the Fire Rescue Department in the amount of $183,926.80.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, moving on to item 105-25. This is to consider action for a liquor license for King's Head Pub in Freeport, where Jameson Tavern used to be. You'll notice there's 2 options here. I will let Chris explain why.
Well, I think we're all aware of our liquor licensing procedures, which is that for new liquor licenses, we come to one council meeting to set the public hearing. We have the applicants wait another 2 to sometimes 4 weeks for the actual public hearing, and then I approve the license. We've had a few situations recently where the timing of our council meetings or the timing of getting applications has presented a challenge for the applicant, the time that it takes for us to get from point A to final approval. So we would like to come back to the council with a new policy that would be the elimination of the public hearing. And so I think the reason that a public hearing is a little bit difficult with a new license is that they don't have any business to fall back on as reference to whether they're conducting well or not. What I personally would like to replace our policy with is something that shifts us back to more staff review. Right now, when I get the liquor license application, it doesn't go anywhere else but to the council. And so I would like to shift that review to staff review, where I review the application for completion. We do codes, fire, and rescue, and police. And we have them all sign off, and then Sophie may put her eyes on the final version. That's the policy we're going to bring back to you. But tonight we have the liquor license application for
the King's Head Pub. So tonight you need to decide whether we're going to have them follow the prior procedure, which is set a public hearing and wait until September for the public hearing, or decide that we're going to approve this license tonight and then have me return with an official policy that really spells out that shift to staff review.
And just be clear, I think you may have said this, but the process we currently have is not required. It's just the town of Freeport.
Yeah, that was another thing. Previously, the public hearing had been a requirement of liquor licensing. It has since shifted to the municipality decides.
Okay.
So I'm going to just step in just a little bit. No, not to help you, just to put a different perspective on it. And that is that the state has changed their licensing process. And in the past, when a business owner wanted to submit for a new application or a renewal, their first step before the state ever saw it was to get municipal approval. So that was kind of the first step. Now, the town doesn't even know about it until they have submitted it, gone through all of their health inspections and all the things that have to happen. And then it comes to the town, and they're ready to open up. And now they're waiting for 2 to 4 weeks for us to get them what they need. So I don't think it's that there are actually 3, because there's another one in the queue right now. So I don't think it's that we have 3 businesses that just haven't, because we had one last time, we have this one, and you're going to have another one coming up, that aren't paying attention or don't. I think they know exactly what they're doing, and they're working towards all of the deadlines that they know about, and then, whoops, you have to wait. So I think what we want to do is kind of provide you with a couple of options to streamline that in a way that makes sense and still make sure that we have appropriate level of oversight is the goal.
And we had kind of danced around this at our last meeting of starting to be like, why do we do it this way? And I think it's a low-hanging fruit to kind of put our money where our mouth is in terms of streamlining processes, being more business-friendly, getting folks into town.
That and the fact that I've not heard anything from the public on any of these saying they
Also a very
shouldn't
good
be.
point, yes.
So how are we proceeding? Are we going to decide on the method
So the
before
two.
we?
We should decide on option B, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so with the two, so staff was very helpful in clearly outlining option A and option B. Option A is we continue as we have historically with setting the public hearing, which I believe would delay the opening of the business, that I'm personally very excited about. And also, option B would be, okay, we're recognizing this is an undue barrier. We're going to approve the liquor license, and then staff will come back with a process drafted for how to address this moving forward. So,
Brett would like to speak to like the economic development piece of this.
sure.
Brett Richardson, Development Director for the town. I think Chris and Sophie did a nice job laying out the logistics. It's important to understand, what this means for a new business.
Yeah.
Who's coming into Freeport, and they're investing, and they're hiring staff, and they're ready to open, and they're excited about it. They also need to start making some revenue, and all of a sudden they get hit with a timeout, right? And we really are working hard, I think, as a community to be a place where we start from yes. And this is a big opportunity to make a move in that direction, especially when we want restaurants, we want people to stay later, longer, into the night hours. And we're lucky to have Justin O'Connor with us tonight from King's Head. I think he's committed to doing a great job in Freeport and is filling a vacant space with a great use. I personally know their Portland location. It's a great spot. It's going to be a nice addition to Freeport. So from an economic development perspective, that B option makes a lot of sense.
And I just want to say thank you to staff. I mean, we'll still discuss what the direction we want to go to. Is thank you to staff for seeing a solution and proposing it. I really appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Justin O'Connor, owner of King's Head Pub. Thank you for considering option B. I made a mistake. I should have done more research, and as Brett said, now I'm in the position of where, we really were hoping to open to catch the entire summer season. We've gone way over budget. The space was really in appalling condition when we took it over. I brought the health department in just to show it to them, and they said, "Well, why are we looking at this?" I said, "I just want you guys to talk about that amongst yourselves, not let this happen again." So it was a much bigger project than we thought, but I really believe in this town. I've wanted to have a pub in this town for a very long time. I had just opened our second location, Queen's Head Pub, up in Bridgeton, which is a great addition to that community. And I was not considering a third place, and I got a phone call about that opportunity, and just the beautiful old building has got so much character, and being in Freeport, I took a big risk, and here we are. I have staff. We sailed through our health license. We've got our COI, and I have staff in there training, and they'd really like to start serving the public. So thank you for considering it, and if not, then thank you anyways.
Thanks for taking the risk.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, too. Councilor Smith?
I just want to acknowledge a little bit of follow-up to what Sophie said in terms of certainly what has changed in terms of the state licensing process and where the town falls in the order versus the state, but also just how Freeport's approach and attitude to liquor licenses, bars, pubs, restaurants has changed over a number of decades from being a dry town in the last century, and really, I think, wanting to be overly sensitive to public concern and the type of establishment that was being opened, and not wanting it to be disruptive to the community, but rather to be an addition, a positive addition to the community. Just looking through the Sips and Subs license in terms of the sorts of questions that you have to answer on this, one is, how close are you to the nearest school or dormitory or place of worship? And in the town of Freeport, in living memory, you had to have sign off from the closest place of worship that they actually approved of your liquor license. And I think we've come a long way from that, and I would support streamlining what it takes to be an open, productive member of the business community here in Freeport.
Any other thoughts on option A versus option B?
Just a question, how far away do you have to be from the, it doesn't matter?
No, you just have to identify how close you are. You could be inside the building, but okay.
Church pub, all right.
Option B?
Option, yeah, I think we all have a general
Do we
consensus.
need to vote on it?
We do, yes. So
So
Councilor,
should I make a motion that we vote, or we read option B?
you can just read option B. You don't even have to worry
Okay.
about option A. So Councilor Brown?
Okay, be it ordered that a new liquor license for Hospitality Freeport LLC doing business as King's Head Pub, Freeport, 115 Main Street, Freeport, be approved. And further, that the town manager be directed to bring back a draft policy that provides for a revised process for municipal liquor license approvals that better supports Freeport's local businesses and ensures appropriate measures to protect public health, safety, and wellness.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. I look forward to coming in. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
Tomorrow?
Be open later
Tomorrow,
tonight.
Wednesday, or Thursday?
Right now? Yeah. Very excited, truly. Thank you.
Yeah, I love the place in Portland.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to item 106-25. So this is to consider action relative to the approval of the transfer of 2 cannabis establishment licenses. So 1-24 cannabis cultivation license and 1-24 cannabis manufacturing and processing license. Go ahead, Chris.
So the very first license that we issued in Freeport was to Maine Cannabis Exchange. Peter Ingram was is the owner. And he has decided to sell the business to Britain. How do you pronounce her last name? Doig? Doig. And Britain has applied for those 2 licenses to be transferred to him. The cannabis ordinance allows for the transfer of a license as long as he had to meet certain criteria. We had to make sure that the current owner was in good standing with the taxes and any fees owed to the town, so that was taken care of. He had to prove that the current owner was still in compliance with all the criteria that we had placed on him, and he has to get final approval from the state. He already has that. He's already a licensed caregiver. The fee that was paid initially will cover still for the full year, and his license will take him through December 17th, and then he'll have to reapply. Do you have any questions for Britton, or?
Straightforward.
Just one question, because we've been through a number of iterations of licensing as the state has continued to update their licensing. And I'm just curious, it doesn't specifically pertain to the transfer of the caregiver license, but I'm curious, with the other manufacturing establishment in Freeport has transitioned to a different type of license. Just wondering if you could state whether your intention is to stay with the caregiver license or move to the other dispensary license.
I guess I would currently just operate as I have been for the last 15 years. I just do a medical cannabis license, just small operator, and I would potentially think about transitioning into the dispensary license. That would be to license both the first and second floor. It would just eliminate the ability or me having to license myself twice for 2 small licenses. It would just be under one, and we'd be operating the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Counselor Smith, could you please read the be ordered?
Yes. I just want to state for the record that I am in a butter to this business, but I have no financial interest, and I do not see a conflict of interest here. Be it ordered that the transfer of 2 cannabis establishment licenses, number 01-24 cannabis cultivation license and number 01-24 cannabis manufacturing and processing license from current owner Peter Ingram to new owner Britton Doig for the cannabis establishment located at 1456 US Route 1, Freeport, be approved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. So we're going to move item 92-25 off the table. So this is to consider action relative to a purchase and sale agreement related deed to sell town-owned land on Bartle Island Road in Freeport. So if you want to remind us, get us back up to speed on this.
Sure. We talked about this at the last council meeting, but we had been going back and forth with the agreement and proposed deed with the town attorney and other party associated with the sale. What we have, my understanding is there might be a couple of very minor changes to this that we might need to undertake, but in substance, what is here would continue. The idea would be we would enter into a purchase and sale agreement to transfer the ownership of the parcel. So currently, this is a piece of property that the town has held for about 30 years. It is currently used for passive recreation. Nothing final, formal, and most definitely not maintained by the town. It was brought to our attention that the property sustained pretty significant erosion as a result of the winter storms and really needed, as many of the properties in that area, some shoreline stabilization.
And put a skate park there, huh?
Yeah, no skate park there. And it is, so it needs about between $100,000 and $150,000 of work done to stabilize the bank. And quite honestly, we don't have any funds budgeted for that. So the people who own the property on the other side of this parcel that have a vested interest in the road not being eroded approached the town with a request to purchase the property. So for $20,800, they would purchase it, and $28,800. They would purchase it, and they would put the money into the erosion stabilization project. At that point, we would transfer ownership, maintaining a deed for public access that reflects the current use of the parcel. When we brought that, the documents were truly hot off the press, as in I was able to forward them to council in the middle of the meeting. So council wanted an opportunity to take a look at those. The question that hasn't been asked, but I am sure councilors might have, is how did we come up with $28,800? We actually took the parcel to our tax assessor with the requirement that this be forever wild and not built upon, and with the public easement for the use. And Min came up with that number as what he would assess the parcel value at current rate, because a lot of the value of that property is stripped away. There's question as to whether it's buildable. We went to the code officer, who said, I will never tell you a perspective if something's buildable or not without a lot more detail about where the high hat line is and things like that. So he said, I think it would be very difficult to put a building on that lot, and we would be restricting it forever at that point anyway. So that's how that dollar amount came back, because what we're selling is a parcel with a considerable amount of the rights around property ownership stripped away from it. I think, Ford, is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, the remediation is a little over.
All right. So the remediation is north of 150.
And the town came to own it through tax acquisition?
So it was tax acquired, but where it was 30 years ago, the decision had been made well before any of the changes to the Supreme Court. And when we talked with the town attorney, we had made a decision that we own it at this point.
Great. Any questions? Councilors, did you read the last one?
I did.
I'll read this one then. Be ordered that the town manager be authorized to execute a purchase and sale agreement and related deed to sell town-owned real estate, undeveloped land located on Bartle Island Road, Freeport, map 20, lot 88.
Second.
All right, all those no? Councilor Egan?
How big is it?
Oh, I had that for the last meeting. 0.8
That
acres.
is what I think, yeah.
It just strikes me, even if it's impaired and has these restrictions, it's oceanfront property, which we're not making any more of. Just seems like that's a relatively modest price for 0.8 acres of oceanfront, even if it comes with a liability of needing repairs.
But it comes also with the liability of never being able to build anything on it and always having to let the public use it. So I'm not trying to tell you you're wrong, Counselor Egan, at all. I'm just saying that's the methodology that went into that.
I get it.
Any other thoughts? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Did you get that, Chris? All right, so now we're going to move on to our public comment period, part 2. So this is folks that are not here, and nobody's speaking up, so we'll move on. So we'll move on to other business, item 1. So this is the discussion of the scope and timing of the traffic calming and pedestrian safety pilot project at Bowen, Maine. We had discussed this at length at our last council meeting and had given Brett and Sophie some direction, so this is follow-up on that Brett will introduce.
This on? Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. Brett Richardson, Development Director. I am here in follow-up to a discussion the council had on July 15th regarding a recommendation for the Main and Bow intersection through the Village Corridor Initiative that we're working on with Maine DOT, Stantec, and Spec Dempsey. So we're going to follow up with a staff recommendation tonight, which I believe was a general request from the council last time we were here. Real quick recap of some information. So the Main and Bow Street intersection, it's largely considered the sort of heart of downtown. It's been a focus area of the community visioning for a long time, particularly the downtown vision of 2022. The background, as I just mentioned, this sketch that you'll see was part of the downtown vision that was endorsed in 2022 by the council and really broadly supported throughout the community. It's a Village Corridor Initiative preliminary recommendation. So the consulting team has walked the corridor, analyzed traffic flow, and sees this as a great opportunity to try out some of the community's goals in the downtown. This trial project was endorsed by the Complete Streets Committee, whose purview is to make sure that the streets are functioning well and serve multiple users from bike and pedestrian to automobile, as well as commercial traffic and buses and the traveling public. So Complete Streets endorsed that July 8th, after which we brought it to you at your last meeting in July, at which time the message was, let's move forward, and let's move forward as quickly as we can. So background on how we got this design. This is an idea that was brought forward by the consulting team, who have engineers on their team. Spec Dempsey, placemaking and village design. Maine DOT has endorsed this idea generally, as well as the town staff from Public Works to Public Safety have been involved in this process. So a lot of good input, a lot of thought went into how we're approaching this to make sure it's safe, that it works from a traffic standpoint, and that we're implementing the community's vision. So good team there. The vision. So here is a sketch that Jeff Speck presented following his presentation to the community in June at the Performing Arts Center, and then discussed with many of the committee chairs and vice chairs at the library in a follow-up meeting. And this is the idea. We're going to, if we move forward with the trial and get good results, it would be to really tighten up that intersection and to reclaim space for public activation, traffic calming, and then in addition, shortening the crosswalks. So it's a tighter intersection, safer for pedestrians, better visibility, and really kind of emphasizing that as the downtown core. Key points to understand if the trial that we're hopefully to embark on soon is going to generate enough consensus to move forward with a permanent change to this intersection. First and foremost, does it always stop work for traffic? Are we going to have extensive queuing on Main Street, backing people up, taking a long time, creating frustration for our residents. So that's the first question. Does an always stop work for traffic? Is it going to work in peak season, right? Summertime's a little bit different here than winter. Let's make sure that it works throughout the year. Are we going to make sure that we continue to serve the tour and the breeze bus? They park downtown. Talking with Chief Nate Goodman, he's made a point that, on a good summer stretch, we'll have 16 tour buses that park at the public safety building. They'll go downtown, they'll drop off visitors at that intersection, and then they'll go wait at the public safety building. And so 16 buses, it's a lot of people downtown. We want to make sure that we can accommodate those with whatever changes that we make so that we keep our commercial core active and we're inviting to our visitors. Do we have adequate safety for public safety vehicles? Can police and fire access all the buildings and all the users in that area if we make this change? Is it adequate for town operations? Can we plow the snow? Can we manage the streets? And is it good for our local businesses? Does it help with foot traffic? Does it keep people in the downtown longer, frequenting our businesses? And then lastly, does it create potential for cultural programming, for music, for food trucks, for new uses downtown in that reclaimed public space? This is how we're thinking about assessing whether or not this trial is successful or not. So we have two options, which was laid out in a memo that you guys have hopefully had a chance to scan. One is the version that we discussed last meeting, which is really what we're calling a transformative demonstration project. It's kind of the full gamut. We're talking about Jersey barriers. We're talking about barricading off to make areas safe for pedestrians. We're talking about doing some activation there. It's a bigger lift. It takes more staff time for Public Works. It involves covering up crosswalks, repainting crosswalks, making multiple moves there. The cost, it'd probably take until about mid-September because we would need to get DOT approval. We also would need to purchase new equipment, so the lead time on that would add a little bit of time to this process. So we're looking at mid-September, and the cost would be about $15,500, give or take, if you include the cost of equipment and then mobilizing Public Works in the evening, at nighttime, during a low-traffic environment where they can actually move the paint on the street to reconfigure that. So a fairly big lift compared to the other option that we'll discuss in a minute. And then we're looking at, depending on weather, a late October, early November removal. So a relatively shorter period of time than the other option. It's the full vision. It would give the community potentially a chance to see the full vision, and that's worth something. So I'm not trying to downplay this too much, but this is how it stacks up. And then finally, because we would want to see how this plays out in the peak season, it would need to be reinstalled in the spring or summer of next year to really understand how it would perform at our busiest time. So that's the transformative demonstration that we talked about last time. Because we heard from the council a desire to move forward with the trial as fast as we could, we went back to our consulting team and said, okay, this is a great vision. We want to get to it. We also recognize that we have staff capacity we have to be mindful of. We have to be mindful of the duration in which it's installed to make sure we have adequate data to make good decisions on. So with that in mind and the council's desire to move forward quickly, is there another option that we could pursue that would be more of a fail fast, fail cheap opportunity? And so we came up with Stantec's engineers and with Maine DOT input, option number 2, did I go too far? Which we're calling the rapid response trial. It's a carefully selected name with the idea that we're trying to do this quickly, and so it's not perfect. It's not the full vision. It doesn't allow us to safely reclaim public space for people to use. Instead of barriers in some areas, we're talking about flex poles. So it's more of a traffic guidance and delineation as opposed to barriers like we have with the parklet in front of DeRozier's on Main Street. The difference is this allows us to move quickly, inexpensively, and it also allows us to isolate a key variable, and that is doesn't always stop work. We'll still be able to understand by traffic cues and other data points with our partners gathered over a pre-test and a post-test regime, so to speak, whether or not this works. The cost is, because DOT is providing the equipment, the cost and the time to turn around is quicker and less expensive. we can, DOT is supportive, by the way. They have provided input to this, and they've already given us a draft agreement that we could sign to then go get the posts and signs and all that stuff. So they haven't formally said that they're automatically going to approve it, but the signals are all there that it'll happen fairly quickly. And because we don't have to order that equipment with that 2 or 3 week lead time, we can move quicker. So we can learn inexpensively this fall, understand how it works, and then have more lead time to partner with Meeting House Arts, to partner with Visit Freeport, to partner with local businesses, to really help the community see that when we reclaim this space, assuming the traffic still flows appropriately, that we can really add some cultural amenities and some energy to downtown. So this is, as opposed to the full vision this fall, this is a quicker, faster, less expensive, rapid response trial. And so from a staff perspective, again, gathering input from some businesses down there, community organizations, police, fire, planning, other folks in the town manager's office, as well as Public Works, we're really leaning towards that rapid response trial. It's something we can move forward on pretty quickly. It's something we can do inexpensively. It acknowledges the hand that DOT is offering to us in partnership because they've provided this input. They want to be helpful. We want to accept that energy and thank them for that and act on it, as opposed to, trying to do too much too soon or waiting too long to show action. So there's some downsides. We're not going to be activating space again. So it's important as we do the outreach to the community to really help them understand, hey, this isn't the full vision. This is really a data collection exercise to make sure that folks who live, in South Freeport who come up on Bow Street and really that's their access to downtown. We want to make sure that they have a reasonable experience at the same time that we're capturing all this momentum in town and taking action to implement the community's vision. So that's where the staff landed. Want to make sure, like I said, that it works for traffic. And then we'll have an opportunity after gathering data through the fall by October or November to make any tweaks that we want to, and then go back to DOT, assuming that we're all comfortable with this, and get their approval sooner so that we have the winter and the early months of spring to really leverage our partnerships, put the energy in place, and really do the full transformative demonstration project to its full potential so we can all see the benefits that we expect it to deliver. So that's the idea, and we're really, there's 2 options there. We want to take action to the extent that we can as recommended by council, and we're looking for support, I guess, on the staff recommendation.
Thank you. I'm in favor of option number 2 as well. Just to clarify, the main DOT approval, we don't have it for either, but it's much more likely to happen for option 2, the rapid response, than 1.
Correct.
Correct, okay. Are there any potential delays that would push back the implementation for option 2?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, it's August 4th, so with the council support, we would, turn around an actual formal submission to DOT, which it will go directly to the state transportation engineer for their sign-off. Their input has been embedded in option 2, so we're essentially resubmitting what they asked us to do, and they've also, like I said, offered to provide the equipment pretty timely. We've got an agreement that we could have signed last Thursday, but we wanted to defer to the council and make sure that was the appropriate action. So all signals point to a pretty quick approval, and with that, I think that we can, work together as a team here to organize workflow, and it's also probably about a 2-day install for Public Works, as opposed to a 4-day install at night. So it's a lower barrier, which allows us to move quicker.
Another question I have, or concern, or just thought, is about the communication aspect. I think it'll have to go beyond like the newsletter and social media. I'm wondering what the other strategies might be for making sure folks know it's part 1,
So we actually have a video shoot scheduled for tomorrow morning at the intersection with Councilor Pilch, Tom Pierce, and myself to start to get video out there. That'll go on social media. I think we can leverage the interest in this. There's going to be a lot of curiosity about this intersection. It's an important one. Pete's already developed some good flyers that we can distribute. And then we'll work on a press release, we'll get the Times Record Press Herald to cover it, and really get the word out there. It's an important goal for the community to understand what we're doing, but also what we're not doing. You know, we want to manage expectations that this isn't the grand vision. This is really a data test, because if we don't do a good job at that, you know, you get one shot at this, the folks might say, that was great, but that's kind of ugly, or we didn't get the benefit that we wanted. So we really need to communicate what it is we're doing, what it is we're getting information on, and how that translates into next steps.
Is there anything we can put there, like physically in the
so
space?
we talked about, so the key thing with the rapid response is we're not moving crosswalks. And so what DOT suggested is that instead of shortening the intersection, there's going to be a space in the middle that is going to be a pedestrian island, so to speak. So if somebody's crossing, let's say from Patagonia across Bow Street towards Linda Bean's restaurant, there'll be an area there, a pedestrian refuge, where if there's any conflict, they'll have a chance to pause in the middle of the intersection and not have to make their way all across. So that's one example of something that when I first saw it, I wasn't very excited about, because it's not the vision that we want to see, hence the need for communication. But it also offers a pretty cool spot to put a little sign with a poster with a QR code that you could zap and then go to the video and see Counselor Pilch explaining why we're doing this. So we're going to have installations there. We haven't fully, brainstormed all the opportunities, but we want to leverage multiple media within that area to engage the public as they encounter it.
Could you put up the picture of the intersection? Because part of your communication team sits right here, and the more we know, the more we can actually, because it's easily conceivable that some town members are going to go crazy, I think.
Some?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm coming from Bow Street, and I want to go south. Is there a turning? There's no turning lane, though.
No, it's going to be an all-way stop, but it's important to understand, too, that this has been vetted by traffic engineers.
Yeah, sure.
And the idea is that it'll likely perform better if you're making that left, because you currently have to wait for the intersection to clear. The north-south Route 1 gets the priority, and you have to be mindful of pedestrians. So the theory that this will actually work better is that there'll be natural stops that creates the gap for you to make that left more sooner, with more predictability and more safety than you currently would.
I can see what happens when you have two lanes as a bicycle rider. It forces bikes to be vehicles who they're not always vehicles, and I'm a bike rider. But I'm a driver too. And bike riders get people shaking their fists at them because they don't act like vehicles. This will force that. So that's a great improvement. I'm skeptical, but you're supposed to be.
That's the beauty of a quick test, though. We'll have a really good sense fairly quickly how it works. And we're also going to measure it so that we ground truth perception with reality as well.
Two questions. One, can you talk a little bit about the cost in terms of doing the trial? Are there any costs that will incur for the trial that can be applied against what we'll have to deploy in the spring? Or is that just all net new cost?
In the spring?
Well, so if we do the trial, right, we do the quick trial, it's going to cost like $5,000.
In staff time.
In staff time. Are they doing anything that will save us on the full deployment when we go to roll it out in the spring?
Not really.
So to do the trial is really making the project like $20,000.
20 versus if you did the full demonstration in the fall, 15-ish, the same thing has to happen in the spring. So it's 20 versus 30, right? So the savings actually compound a little bit.
Yeah, but the third option would be that we just wait till the spring to do the full version.
Yep.
But don't get me wrong, I think doing the trial makes sense. I just wanted to ask the question.
Sure.
I also want to ask the question, how are we monitoring if this is a success? Like, what are we doing for traffic monitoring? And are we doing it only at the intersection, or are we going to take into consideration the additional traffic on Depot Street? Or, because I, for one, will be a skeptic, so I will continue to avoid downtown. And so while it may be somebody sitting there at that intersection saying, wow, traffic's really moving smoothly, it's gridlock in another part of our town. So are we capturing that data somehow?
It's a two-part answer to that. So the first answer is how we're going to assess the movement at that intersection, and how does that translate or push people in different directions that we're creating an issue that we didn't anticipate. So we've had discussions with Greater Portland Council of Governments. They have equipment that they can deploy with the town. Maine DOT is going to provide input on how to assess this. We're lucky to have a multi-talented assessor who also has a drone, who can fly up at peak times and take video so that we can actually capture images and count. But the idea is...
Sorry, we need to make sure Min just has like one job.
So really the big data point at the intersection, which I asked this question too, because I was talking with somebody and they said, well, yeah, but if you have a stop sign at Main and Bow, always stop, and you don't slow traffic down as they approach, they're all going to jam up. And so I asked that question to Stantec to say, hey, is this going to be a valid test? Or are we, because we don't approach this more comprehensively throughout the corridor, are we just setting ourselves up for failure? And they said, no. We've looked at this from a data standpoint, and we think that the rest of the corridor could behave and be structured and designed the way it currently is, and this would still keep people moving. So we're going to look at 25-foot lengths probably. We haven't finalized this, but we're going to demarcate 25-foot stations up and down so we can see that's about a car's length, and we'll be able to track through visual counting, through drone footage, how many cars are stacking up. And we're going to do that before we install it, and we're going to do it after, and we're going to assess the change.
Is that going to be the whole corridor?
That's just for Main and Bow. Okay. That's for the fall. But what we'll learn from that is, to your point, is this creating issues elsewhere? And we'll have an opportunity, if this works at Main and Bow, to design and account for that through perhaps other installations or trials up and down the corridor. For example, we had a conversation with the Bicycle Coalition of Maine last week at a staff level to discuss opportunities to engage with them. And some of the things that they do are installations at stop signs that really emphasize the crosswalk and slow traffic down, that are very similar to what we're talking about here, that are inexpensive, and it's posts and not big, expensive gear. And so if we determine through observations that this works at Main and Bow, but it's creating these issues elsewhere, we can account for that and design for that and come back with something that we would, with engineering input, have confidence that we could solve for. So that's another opportunity. And to me, this is something really, when I first came to Freeport in 2022, this is something that's always bubbled up as a priority, always bubbled up as something that we should do. To the extent that I think one of the comments that was made, at the last meeting is, why aren't we already doing this? And so it feels like an opportunity to really understand in action, not on paper, not with data, but actually seeing it and experiencing it, if it works or not.
Can I clarify my question of, when you're talking about 25-foot monitoring, so you'll be putting in, am I understanding that correctly? So you'll have some sort of data collection every 25 feet?
No, we'll go out there on the street, and
Okay.
we'll be able to sort of measure 25 feet. You make it, a line.
Okay,
Just
okay.
so from the air you can tell.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
In addition, I'm just going to jump in. Brett has done a phenomenal job marshaling the internal team on this project. I think that there is a lot of skepticism around Spec Dempsey's assertion that taking turn lanes out of this intersection is a good idea. And so before we spend time activating space and working to show people, even in a trial, that this is all of the wonderful things we can do here. At the end of the day, as much as we like pedestrians and cyclists, if we cannot move cars safely through this intersection, we're not going to be able to do the rest of it. So this, in talking with DOT folks, this is a way that we can quickly and isolate whether or not this works. So when you normally look at intersections, they're given grades, A to F, and F really means failing. And there are specific metrics that we use there. Some of those we are going to be able to see peak times. They are going to do traffic counts for us, so that's data that's important. The other piece that we don't want to talk about, because if this is not an A+ intersection, which I think it would be really hard to get this to an A intersection, just because of the demand. But if it's not an A+ intersection, we're probably going to have crash data here. We have crash data currently. And so that data is sliced in many different ways. The other way that I know is anecdotal, but I think it's powerful, is our law enforcement are going to be, as they normally are, all through the downtown, and we'll be able to talk about where there are pinch points. I now get, ever since on-street parking, expanding on-street parking was suggested, I now get, I wouldn't say daily, so more than daily, less than weekly, pictures from our police chief driving down Main Street in the middle of the day to talk about where the pinch points are on Main Street. So, I mean, I think we'll find that. But I would be a proponent of trying to do something this limited first to just test a three-way stop.
I agree, and I avoid that intersection in the middle of the day. So. In the summertime. Sometimes in the wintertime, mostly in the summertime, I'll go either exit 20 or exit 22 and avoid that if I got to go to Bow Street or if I'm going in. So I think it's a good test, and I think this is really what we should be doing.
Councilor Egan.
I think a while ago, the planning term was tactical urbanism or something like that for these kind of things. So no surprise, I'm all in favor of trying it out. Let's get out there and do something. I just want to be mindful that I hope we can separate the empirical data of traffic counts and whatever the drone says and the emotional data of all the emails we're going to get about what the heck are we doing, blah, blah, you know. So, because change is hard, and so I'm glad to hear of a thorough communication plan. I was thinking of a big billboard on the construction side of that intersection, but a QR code makes much more sense. And so I think the more we can all talk about it, the better, and I really hope you can get the press to pick up on that in time for people to digest and kind of get used to the idea that something might look a little different.
Maybe we should show up a few of these things just to confuse everybody so they get used to the change. I'm kidding, but.
I second John's comment, and sooner is later is better than later. So, like, get it out there, get the trouble in the air, because some people will perceive it as, yikes, what's going on here? But we see that all the time, and nothing better than a little discussion to help alleviate it, so.
So it looks like most of council were supportive of the rapid response. Yep. Great.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brett. All right, other business, item 2, the discussion of the municipal alarm monitoring service. The manager did send out an email about this, and I think the chief will brief us even further.
Good evening. It's been a busy night.
Yeah, hello.
When I started here a little over a year ago, it was brought to my attention that we had a city box system where we did alarm monitoring. I was not overly familiar with that. I thought that process and technique had gone away many, many years ago. Not a lot of communities still use that type of city box system on a telephone pole or on a building where you actually pull the hook and it notifies the fire department and everybody comes running. So with that being said, what we found initially when I started last year were a lot of discrepancies and a lot of issues with the maintenance of the system. The biggest factor we have in that is that we believe that there's one repair technician in the whole state of Maine, and he works in another community full time. So having the resources to have somebody come here and maintain the system for us has been very problematic. So we've presented our opinion, the fire department's opinion, to Sophie to see if basically we can get out of the fire alarm monitoring business. And I know a lot of businesses in my time here doing inspections and my interactions with LL Beans and many other facilities here in town, most of the bigger businesses in town have kind of gone on to their own monitoring, and the technology has changed incredibly now with wireless monitoring and all of that. So that's pretty much where we are. If you have a specific question, I can try to answer it. Yes,
So
sir.
if I could, I'm going to jump in because you're doing a great job. But one of the things that's driving us now is we knew we were kind of coming to the end of the useful life. We had talked to council about that. I was feeling like we'd be able to get some notice out and we would let people change. It has come to our attention that we are not confident in the reliability. And as soon as we weren't sure about the reliability, given what this does, Chief is like, we need to end it. So letters have gone out to people who have signed up for the system, letting them know that they need to change. When we had our last discussion, I was kind of like, oh yeah, so we'll do this, and then when it's not great, we'll stop it, and then we'll punt from there, because to update the system is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't think anybody sees that as a worthwhile use of municipal resources when, for similar costs, people can have their system monitored by somebody who's got the system. I thought I was on track, and then it was pointed out to me that there's an ordinance that I totally missed where the council says we're gonna provide this service. So we're gonna need to take this back to ordinance committee and get out of that and to take it off the fee schedule. I feel like we can temporarily suspend it as a staff decision since it's not a reliable service for public safety. But I do think ultimately council's going to have to change the ordinance to remove any of those references and to remove from the fee schedule.
So how many businesses are actually on it still?
That's the difficulty, is so many people have gone private. And the whole, from what I understand, the whole charging piece and whatnot just really hasn't been there as well. So having that data, I have a spreadsheet and I have address labels for everybody, for the 300 people that used to be on the system. So I really don't have good data for you on that, unfortunately. I inherited that, and
I was one of those people, and
Yes, sir.
The value in its day was that the response time was probably, 5 minutes, 10 minutes faster.
Sure.
Things have changed, so I mean, it makes sense to get out of something that's not working as reliably.
We're getting a lot of errant alarms as well. Anytime we have inclement weather, whether it's some type of an electrical storm coming, thunder, lightning, rain, we have several businesses in town that we still are having to go out and we get there, we do a full inspection and go through the property. There's no hazard. We reset the system and we come back. So it's not a horrific drain of resources, but it's also taking us away from other calls and whatnot.
It's absolutely necessary. 10 or 15 years ago, I got to know that technician pretty well.
Yes.
And actually, those problems were happening then, so.
Sure. Thank you.
It has to happen. It's just, you don't want to leave people high and dry, and they need to have the time to switch over to one of the services.
Absolutely. We've been working with the RSU school system, as I mentioned, and with, as I said, with pretty much every public interaction I've been having with business in town. We've been trying to kind of spread the word, like, hey, you know, there's a lot better resources out there. And again, a lot of people have done that. And the school system, literally just the end of last week, we had an issue. We responded to an alarm at the middle school. And within 4 to 6 hours, I had a text message from the head maintenance person with a picture of a brand new monitoring service, and the system is up and running. So it's working.
So I will be clear, I don't think we are necessarily people aren't going to get a busy signal, or it's not going to be ringing and us not answer. What we're making people well aware of is we don't know that we're going to get the message. And the other thing I would say is, given the change in dispatch, Steve, I don't know that it was saving any time for us to get that message, as opposed to one of the private 24-hour monitoring systems to get that.
In the day, it came to the fire station.
So in the day, way back in the day, we had dispatch there. Now dispatch is somewhere totally different.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when the system was put in place, we didn't have these.
Exactly.
Which anyone can now call, whereas in the past, you're walking down the street and you see a fire, you couldn't dial 911 because, so.
So what are we collecting for fees currently?
$50 a year, I think.
How many people have paid in the last year?
So the good news is, it expired June 30, and we did not send bills back out yet. So
Good timing, I guess.
we don't owe anybody any money back. And we're just not billing them at this point.
But should we look at who paid last year and make sure we do a targeted outreach to say?
That is who got letters
Okay,
from us.
great.
Chief wrote a great letter.
I was going to raise the same point that that Sophie made in terms of the fact that since we don't host dispatch anymore, it's really about how quickly is this message getting to dispatch, and that's probably going faster through the private monitoring services, who are all interconnected with every place they need to be, rather than pinballing around Freeport before it goes to Brunswick to come back to Freeport.
Certainly is.
The other thing I would just say about the fees is, I think part of the confusion is that some organizations or buildings that were on the circuit were exempted from the fee, but it was unclear even which ones were exempted. And I had a conversation with the person in the police department trying to track that, who was also very confused about what any of this meant. So I think the system has been devolving for a while. And I do think it was a really helpful service when it was instituted. In addition to the fact that we don't have the resources to completely replace this, I also think it is the time to exit what would inevitably be continuous maintenance of both hardware and software to keep all of this going when, as you say, for the most part, people have already moved on.
Right. I've responded personally to a couple of calls in town. We get reports of wires down, so we respond. There was one for a long time in front of the yogurt shop, and have responded to these wires down. And what it is the actual, the casing, the plastic casing that is on the wire that sends the message is actually what is coming off, and it's dropping down and hanging into the roadways and creating a hazard for people. And so we don't, people, no line's safe to touch. So people are scared and they call for assistance. And so again, it's just that type of stuff that we really truly are finding that it's just antiquated.
What are other communities doing? Are they?
most everybody's going to private alarm monitoring. Like as far as I know, off the top of my head, in resources in the state, the only other municipally managed and run city is the city of Portland that I'm aware of in the whole state.
Do you need anything from council, or is this more of like an FYI, or?
This would have been your opportunity to tell me, you're all wrong, Sophie, and we want to do it this way. And I just feel like if I'm not following the ordinance, I need to make you aware and make sure that we're on the same path.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. I think you're off the hook for the rest of the night. All right, the final item for other business is the fall district meetings agenda. So we had asked special projects to discuss potential agendas for the district meetings in the fall. Those are on the calendar. They're all in September. They're all at 6 p.m. I don't know if special projects has done that.
The plan was for us to meet near the end of August to bring a proposed draft kind of baseline agenda back to council for the September 2nd meeting. And then, of course, individual district councilors could tailor that to what some other possible, so just so we'd have some baseline consistency across the topics we were putting out for conversation, that could then be updated for particular.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to, I'm sorry to make Chris try to schedule one more special council meeting, but, sorry, special projects meeting, but I think it's Councilor Brown and Councilor Pilch and I that just need to get together with our schedules to figure out maybe that last week of August.
And I think, you know, the point was, these meetings went really well last time, but there was some feedback of just like, it'd be nice to know what you might touch on instead of it being completely open-ended. So keeping it mostly a, you know, conversational, what do folks want to talk about, but having some, here's what we will discuss. So there's some knowledge there.
Yeah, I think that I'll just use Councilor Pillsbury's meeting where it had a lively group of people, but we really got stuck in
Parking and speeding.
Speeding to a degree that everything else was drowned out. And I think a meeting that probably could have effectively put the message across and allowed people to feel heard probably could have taken about 70% of the time, 60% of the time. And I know we had some folks who were getting a little frustrated. Just, I think it would have been easier if we'd been able to move through an agenda.
Yeah, absolutely.
For everybody.
Yeah.
And I just feel bad that Councilor Pillsbury was the one that really got hit with that.
He did great.
You should feel bad that I was not aware that it was just my whatever agenda I wanted for the evening. I wish I had known. I think this is a great turn on that, is to have sort of a structured, these are the points we're going to be talking about, because I think there are a lot of things like the intersection of Main and Bow should be a topic point. I think there's some stuff really to just at a high level make sure we're disseminating across the town, and then leave ample time for questions, discussion, natural conversation that comes up, but a little bit more structure would be welcome on my part.
You did really great, though. It was
Yeah, you did
wonderful.
a wonderful
And I will say, you know, another iterative process. This was the first year we had brought them back, and now we're making it a little bit more streamlined. Just to kind of go through the schedule. So District 2 is September 9th at Wolf's Neck. District 3 is September 11th at South Freeport Church. District 1 is September 25th at Freeport Community Services. District 4 is September 30th at Maine Waldorf School. Again, those are all at 6 p.m. And just encouraging at-large counselors to try to make it to at least one of those. We'll talk about that at our next council meeting, and that's it for the agenda tonight.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are all done.